Welcome back. We will examine partnerships, friendships, family ties, work, retirement, spirituality, and the search for meaning. Listen with two ears. One for the research. One for the elders in your own family. Both are part of what you carry into the counseling room. Here is our path. 4 sections in roughly 23 minutes. We begin with relationships, the convoy of people who travel through life with the older adult. Then, the psychosocial theory. Then work, retirement, and meaning. We close with counselor implications, the part where research becomes practice. Throughout, I will keep weaving in 4 threads that the textbook tends to leave at the margins. Cross-cultural research, indigenous ways of knowing, neurodivergent older adults, and the humanistic counseling lens. These are not add-ons. They change the picture of late adulthood you will carry into your work. Part 1. Relationships. I want you to set aside the cultural script that says older adults shrink into themselves. The research tells a different story. The relational lives of older adults are smaller in number and richer in quality. Late adulthood is when people decide who matters, what to invest in, and what to release. Relationships are not the backdrop of late adulthood. They are the foreground. Tony Antonucci's convoy model is one of the most useful frameworks for late-life relationships. Picture concentric circles. The older adult sits at the center. The inner ring holds spouse, child, sibling. The middle ring holds friends and extended kin. The outer ring holds neighbors and the community. The convoy travels with us, and its shape shifts. The indigenous reframe widens the picture. In the relational worldview from Terry Cross and Nikwa, the elder is never alone at the center. The elder sits inside a living web of ancestors, land, and ceremony. The bottom of the slide is the public health headline. Loneliness carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We treat loneliness like the medical condition it is. 3 numbers to anchor us. Roughly 6 in 10 adults aged 65 and older live with a partner. 40% of adults aged 65 to 80 report active sexual lives, and that number is almost certainly an undercount. Marital quality predicts cognitive function. Long love does something for the brain. Touch hunger is real. Chronic illness, medication, and partner loss change intimacy. Institutional settings often make partnered intimacy logistically impossible, and many clinicians never ask. Older adults are waiting for someone to ask the sexuality question. Be the counselor who does. Gray divorce has doubled since 1990. 1 in 4 divorces in the United States today involve someone over 50. Most older adults who divorce later do not remarry. They cohabit or enter into living apart together relationships. Cohabitation among older adults has increased by 75% in the past decade, partly because remarriage can disrupt Social Security and inheritance plans. The cross-cultural lens matters. Many immigrant and faith communities stigmatize late-life divorce, and older women in those communities can become acutely isolated. The clinical task is identity work. Eleanor, age 68, says, "I do not know who I am when I am not somebody's wife." That sentence is not pathological. That is developmental work. 1 in 3 women 65 and older is a widow, whereas for men it is only 1 in 8. Late-life grief involves acute loss, role reorganization, and a financial reshuffle. Older adults often experience bereavement overload, where each new loss reopens the older ones. The DSM-5-TR added prolonged grief disorder in 2022 to name grief that remains disabling beyond 12 months. The indigenous wisdom on this slide is important. In many tribal nations, widowhood is held by the community with an extended ceremony. Songs, obligations, witnessed practice. Western models often treat grief as private and time-limited. That mismatch is where older clients from many cultures fall through the cracks in clinical care. As Queen Elizabeth said, "Grief is the price we pay for love." About 9% of older adults in the United States have never married. That number is rising in newer cohorts. The strengths column is real. People who have never married often have well-developed friend networks, deep self-knowledge, and autonomy that long-married people sometimes have to fight to recover after a spouse dies. The risks column is also real. Less family caregiving when needs intensify. Healthcare systems that assume a spouse advocate. Never married mothers, particularly women of color, face compounded financial stress. Sociologists now use the phrase kinship of choice, and friend-based aging is becoming a public health frontier. Friend-based loneliness interventions consistently outperform service-based ones. So a never-married older adult is not a deficit case. They are often a relational pioneer. Siblings often hold the longest relationship of a person's life. In late adulthood, the bond often becomes more egalitarian, and strained ties often re-warm after a parent's death. Sibling support buffers against depression and morbidity. Friendships in late life are chosen for emotional resonance, not utility. Older adults often describe their friends as the day-to-day support, with kin showing up for crises. Pets function as kin for many older adults, especially solo agers, and the bond carries documented health benefits. C.S. Lewis on the slide. Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." That is the late life. Friendship. Most older adults talk with at least one adult child weekly. Aging parents typically give more than they receive, and parents who provide financial help to adult children show fewer depressive symptoms, not more. 2.7 million American grandchildren live primarily with their grandparents. These skipped-generation households are disproportionately Black, Latin, and Indigenous. Grandparents step in because of incarceration, addiction, immigration enforcement, or child welfare overreach. The strengths are real. Renewed purpose, intergenerational identity, cultural transmission, higher depression rates, financial strain, and untreated health conditions in the caregiving grandparent. In many tribal nations, the grandparent-grandchild bond is foundational, not a backup plan. The skipped-generation household is often a continuation of traditional kin care. There are more than 3 million LGBTQ+ adults 65 and older in the United States, and they experience roughly twice the rate of social isolation as cisgender heterosexual peers. This generation carries a particular history. Many came of age before Stonewall. Some did not come out until their 70s. Chosen family is often the only family present, and our healthcare systems still default to biological kin for visitation and decision-making. Trans elders face acute discrimination in long-term care, housing, and end-of-life settings. Long-term HIV survivors are now aging into late adulthood. The counselor's note matters. Ask who the people are you would want involved in your care. Let the older adult define the convoy. Roughly 1 in 10 community-dwelling older adults experiences some form of mistreatment in a given year. Most perpetrators are family members. The forms range from physical and sexual to financial, emotional, neglect, and self-neglect. The piece I most want you to hold is on the right. Ageism is the root cause. The WHO Global Report on Ageism found that half of the world's population holds ageist attitudes, and Becca Levy's research shows that internalized self-directed ageism shortens life by an average of 7.5 years. Older adults who carry negative beliefs about aging die younger. As counselors, we are mandatory reporters in most states. The threshold and pathway differ by jurisdiction. Know yours. Part 2. Psychosocial Theory. Erickson, Peck, Carstensen. These are the names you will see on every comprehensive exam. I want us to engage them seriously and also ask where the theories were built. Most were built on white middle-class samples. The indigenous and humanistic frames widen the picture. Theories should serve those in late adulthood. The elder should not have to fit the theory. Erickson's final stage is integrity versus despair. Integrity is the sense that my life had meaning, that I contributed something, and that I lived a unique course. Despair is the sense that it was too short, I made the wrong choices, and there is not enough time to repair it. Most older adults sit somewhere on the spectrum between the two, and they move along it as they reflect. Reminiscence is the clinical bridge. The healthy purposes of reminiscence are identity formation, problem-solving, preparation for death, and teaching others. Reminiscence-based interventions have effect sizes comparable to CBT for late-life depression. The indigenous parallel matters. Oral storytelling traditions treat the elder's life narrative as a gift to the community, not a private psychological task. The elder remembers aloud, and the community is shaped by what is remembered. Robert Peck described 3 tasks of successful aging that pick up where Erickson leaves off. Ego differentiation. Identity expands beyond the work role. Who am I when I am no longer a doctor, teacher, soldier, or mother of small children? Body transcendence. Identity holds steady when the body changes. The person is more than the diagnosis, more than the pain, more than the cane. Ego transcendence. Investment in what will survive one's own death. Mentorship, ceremony, ancestors in waiting. Life Review pulls these together. Robert Butler proposed in 1963 that systematic life review is a developmental task, not a symptom of aging. The humanistic frame from Irvin Yalom calls this rippling. What we leave in others continues to expand outward. The indigenous frame is even more direct. Ego transcendence is preparing for the journey of becoming an ancestor. Laura Carstenson's socio-emotional selectivity theory is one of the most quietly revolutionary ideas in lifespan psychology. When time feels expansive, people pursue novel and informational relationships. When time feels limited, people prioritize emotionally meaningful ties. Older adults are not lonelier, they are pruning deliberately. The remaining circle is smaller, denser, warmer, more attuned. The positivity effect rides on this. Older adults attend to and recall more positive stimuli, and the pattern replicates across the United States, China, and Germany. The neurodivergent reframe is the part I most want you to absorb. Autistic and ADHD older adults often describe always preferring small, deep relational circles. SST validates that pattern as lifelong, rather than a decline. Part 3. Work, retirement, and meaning. The cultural script in the United States says retirement is the reward at the end of working life. The lived experience is more complicated. Some older adults thrive in retirement. Others lose footing when work, which has organized their identity for 40 years, suddenly disappears. Many cultures do not have the concept of retirement at all. We will look at the trends, the transition theory, the archetypes, and where meaning gets made. The average retirement age in the United States is now around 65 for men and 63 for women, and roughly 1 in 4 adults aged 65 to 74 still works for pay. The share of people working past 70 has doubled in 20 years. Why are older adults still working? Some by choice, many by necessity. Insufficient savings. The need to keep employer health insurance until Medicare. Identity and purpose. Bridge jobs. The inequity column matters. Black and Latin adults retire with roughly half the wealth of their white peers. Women retire with about 70% of the median retirement wealth of men. Caregiving pushes women out earlier, and many indigenous communities have no formal retirement framework. As one Diné elder told researchers, retirement is not in our language. We become the elder. The role does not end. It deepens. Nancy Schlossberg's transition theory gives us a clinical framework for any major life change, including retirement. 4 S's. Situation. What is changing, and was the change voluntary or forced? Self. Identity, health, and prior coping history. Support. Who is in the convoy? Strategies. What does this person already know how to do? The right column is Schlossberg's 6 retirement archetypes. Continuer. More of the same in a different way. Adventurer. Something entirely new. Searcher. Looking for the niche. Easy glider goes with the flow. Involves spectator, cares, but no longer a key player. Retreater has given up. The retreater is the one who warrants clinical attention. Most older adults move between archetypes across the post-retirement decade. Retirement is a process, not a single event, and it requires time to grieve the life left behind, fumble new paths, and integrate. The Big 5 personality traits change in predictable ways across late life. Conscientiousness and agreeableness tend to increase. Neuroticism tends to decrease. Brent Roberts calls this the maturity principle. People continue to develop, often in pro-social directions, into their 70s and 80s. Resilience is not a fixed trait. It is domain-specific. The predictors are prior coping history, strong relational ties, sense of purpose, and cultural and spiritual belonging. The indigenous research is what I most want you to remember. Cultural connectedness is the single strongest protective factor for indigenous elders across mental and physical health outcomes. For indigenous clients, supporting cultural reconnection is not adjunctive. It is the intervention. George Bonanno reframes resilience well. It is not bouncing back. It is bouncing forward, with the wound integrated into the story. Lars Tornstam proposed gerotranscendence as a developmental shift in late life. Older adults often move from a material, rational, ego-bound view of the world to a cosmic, transcendent one. Markers include diminished fear of death, increased affinity with past generations, and a felt sense of being part of something larger than the self. Spirituality often deepens. Formal religiosity tends to remain stable. The cross-cultural echoes matter. Hinduism's life stage of Vanaprastha names this shift directly. Buddhist practice often deepens. Christian and Jewish traditions hold the elder in high regard as a sage. Indigenous ceremony actively prepares the elder to become an ancestor. Take spirituality seriously in your intake. The FICA tool gives you a structure. Faith, importance, community, address. The 4th letter puts the older client in charge of how spirituality enters the work. Viktor Frankl's line is the spine of meaning-centered work. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Frankl developed logotherapy from his time in Nazi concentration camps, and the framework has been adapted into meaning-centered psychotherapy by William Breitbart and colleagues, originally for cancer patients and now for older adults more broadly. The 4 sources of meaning are relationships, contribution, transcendence, and legacy. Relationships, the convoy that knows me. Contribution, what I have given and still give. Transcendence, the spiritual, ceremonial, and ancestral. Legacy, what survives me, named or unnamed. The humanistic lens at the bottom is critical. Meaning is co-constructed with the older client. We do not prescribe it. We make the space for it to emerge. 5 practices for the relational and psychosocial life of late adulthood. First, center the elder as an expert on their own life, culture, and dying. The counselor is a witness. Second, map the convoy explicitly. Inner ring, middle ring, outer ring. Notice who is missing and who is showing up. Third, Integrate culture and spirit at intake. Use FICA. Use cultural humility. Build ceremony into the work. Fourth, watch for late identified neurodivergence, especially when older clients describe a lifelong sense of being different. Fifth, honor reminiscence and life review as clinical interventions, not symptoms of decline. Those 5 together are humanistic, culturally responsive, neurodiversity affirming, and developmentally sound practices. I want to close with Betty Friedan's line from The Fountain of Age. Aging is not lost youth, but a new stage of opportunity and strength. The research points the other way. Convoys deepen, meaning consolidates, stories ripen. A question to carry with you. Who is the elder in your life whose late life choices shaped how you understand connection, meaning, or purpose? Bring that person into the counseling room with you. Thank you for the work you have done this semester. References for the chapter, in APA 7th edition format, slide 1 of 2. I will not read these aloud. The full list lives in the deck and on the course site for your reference. Antonucci's Convoy paper, Carstenson's 2021 Socio-Emotional Selectivity Update, and the Lewis and Allen Indigenous Resilience paper are particularly useful if you are writing about late-life relationships in your final project. References, slide 2 of 2. A diversity citation statement accompanies this list. As individuals with multiple invisible marginalized identities, we are committed to ensuring that the works cited include authors from a wide range of backgrounds, including ability, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, class, language, and communication. We recognize that these authors may carry such identities themselves. Thank you again, and I look forward to meeting you soon.